you is to talk about this, what we're doing today here. You have the hashtags there, you have a paper. We're also showing it here, so if you want to watch your tweet appear instantaneously, you can watch any of these screens. So share your feedback, share your insights with us, with people who couldn't make it here. We will also be taping, so by the end of the week, we will also post a short version and also the full version of what we're doing here today. So welcome at Started, Leuven. Because of the interest in this keynote, we moved in this location. So we also have a room with a view here on the back side. It's different. Last time we had Xavier as our guest. It was in Antwerp last year in March. He gave a keynote on the bumpy road of a startup, his startup obviously, Storify, of which he's a co-founder and CEO, I think stuff. Today we're going for another topic. Xavier himself will introduce that to you. There will be room for questions, and afterwards, for those people who were not here early, there still will be some food and drinks for you and to talk with us about the interesting topics we will discuss in this keynote for the next hour, including your questions. Xavier, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. So the room is a bit really wide, so I'll try to cover the entire area, but bear with me. So I'm Xavier. I'm actually Walloon. I don't do strikes, and I love traveling. And I know I may feel like a minority, but we're a growing minority, so bear with us. So basically, I started this company called Storify, and which is all about social media. A couple of years ago, I now live in San Francisco, which is a really great city that you have to visit if you haven't done so yet. But what we're going to talk about today, I already did a previous talk that is already, there's a video of it if you wanna look it up, about the story of moving from Belgium to San Francisco and the bumpy road of being an entrepreneur. But the talk today really is about marketing. And so let me start off by putting something straight. Marketing is actually for products that suck. I do believe that we shouldn't need marketing, really. I mean, products should speak for themselves. A millennial said, if the news is that important, it will find me. But that applies to news, but it also applies to products. If the product is really, really good, well, the product will find me. Someone in my social networks, my friends, my colleagues, people I follow on Twitter or whatnot will mention that product at one point or another. And the reason for that is because the world has fundamentally changed in many ways, and especially in the ways we communicate in our society. We used to be in a centralized society where the only way you could get information was through broadcast mainstream media, whether it's newspaper, whether it's television, or whatnot. And so in that world, it was this famous as seen on TV. That was the main way that people would get to know a new product, your product. And so as a marketing department, what you needed to do in that world was find the best shot, the best angle to talk about your product, because that would be the only angle, the only perspective people will get to see. And so you will show your best face. And so it doesn't matter how the sausage is made. You will have those famous photos of hamburgers of McDonald's that look everything but what you get when you order one. That's because you can control the entire message. You can really make it up the way you want. People will only get that angle. But in this new world, people get actually information from many different sides, from many different people. And that's the reason why you cannot control entirely the message anymore, because in order to get access to all the people there, you actually need to go through intermediaries, other people who kind of share your message. And in the process, probably also kind of modifies the message. So if you can't reach them from the top anymore, you need to reach them from the side. And the best way to do that is to use your users, let your users do the marketing for you. You need, in a way, to consider them, and especially your fans, as an extension of your marketing team. If you think that your marketing team is only the 1, 2, 3, 10 people you have, no, it's actually just it's the community of people who are really addicted to your product, really love your product or your services, and you should use them as marketing as an extension of your marketing team. And the reason for that is because each one of them in this new network, they have a network of their own. And the best way to reach that node over here is to actually go through that person. And the reason why is because that person maybe speaks a different language, use different lingo, or just like trust that person much more than you in the first place. Maybe they don't know you yet. And so that's why it's really important to empower your users to do the marketing for you and reach out to their own network and say what you want them to say. And so to do that, you need to make sure that they have everything they need. So you really want, instead of having like in the old fashion, like just have one shot of your product that you're gonna distribute everywhere in magazines and all of those mainstream media. Now you need to really provide as many things as possible, as many different angles of the product or services, as many white papers, a lot of all the information. Basically, in a way, you need to open up your intranet for your marketing team to actually be an extranet, right? All the content there should be published because all of those people, you cannot tell them use this. No, you need to offer them a lot of things and they will decide. It's not top to bottom anymore, it's bottom up. So offer them as much content as possible and then let them pick what they want, they will reuse it. And that's the best way to kind of keep some type of control over your message. The other thing too is you really need to remove the barriers for people to share the things that you want them to share. So for example, copyright is definitely something that is really not well suited for this new way of distributing knowledge and content information and whatnot. All the things that may scare someone to reuse something that you do, you should try to avoid. And so those are all the things that are really important. To open up your intranet. The other thing you will want to do is, once you have people who are doing what you want them to do, you need to reward them, making sure that they can continue doing it. The best way to manage is actually not to say like, hey, especially in the bottom-up, society and network, you cannot control what people are going to do, so you need to give them the content. They will do a lot of different things, and some things they will do, you will not like it, and that's fine. But some people will do things that you will like, and that's fine, but that's even better, that's great. And so you need to double down on that. You need to reward them so that they will do it more, and so that it will also attract more people to do the things that you want them to do. And so there is multiple ways to do that. And one of the best ways to highlight their work and let them know that, well, this is great what you are doing. Also, like people, they don't want to be told, what to do. They want to see it from themselves. So that's also part of this. It's really about also showing the social momentum. People are going to be much more convinced if their social network, in the broad sense, is telling them that, yeah, this is a good tool, go ahead, versus, no, this is, just a marketing person telling you that this product is great. Like, think about it. If you have a company who is telling you, hey, our product is awesome, well, you're not really going to believe them, because of course they're going to say that. Now, if instead they will show you what other people are saying about their product, it's all of a sudden going to be much more, convincing. No, we are not telling you it's awesome. Look, all of those people are saying it's awesome. So of course there will also be probably people who won't say that, but that's fine. Your job, for marketing is more like conveying this social momentum to convincing people to use your product. And so for doing those things, that's why I built Storify. So Storify is this platform that allows you to, this video play, here we go. It's this platform, this kind of typewriter for social media that allows you to search social network, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and manually drag and drop the items that you want to include in your story, so that you can only choose what the nice things that people have said about your services, product, or conference, for example, if you're organizing a conference. So actually that's a lie. that's not the reason why I built Storify. The real reason I built Storify, and the reason why it's not the reason I built Storify is because I'm a millennial myself, and so I don't do things for the money, I don't do things for marketing, I do things because I believe in something. And the thing that I believe in, and that's the reason why I really built Storify, is because I really wanted to give a voice to the people. And people started using social networks more and more, and they were trying to tell the world what was happening. You know, whether it's during the Arab Spring, for example, that was a really good example of that. The problem is that I identified was that, well, it's really noisy, and so nobody really get to see what the people on the street in Egypt, for example, in that case, were trying to tell the world. And so that's why I wanted to build this platform to do that. Another reason was also to give the opportunity to have different perspective, not only on product, but also when something like, you know, there is a conflict somewhere happening, where you can get to see not only one side of the story, but you get to see the both sides of the story, and I think it's important. I also think it's important that we can help debunk propaganda. When Putin was saying that it didn't have any troops in Ukraine, people use social media to actually take pictures and showing and together to the demonstration that this was actually a lie. Also to help us and help the world get to see places where journalists don't get to see. And so here, for example, it's North Korea in Instagram, and you get to see some interesting images. The reason why I'm saying that is, so the great thing is, that was the real reason why I started Storify, but it turns out that building that tool was also super useful for doing marketing, because it was also about helping people. If you want to help people better understand what's happening in the world, you can also use the same tool to help people better understand your product and the reason why your product is great and needs to be shared in the network. And I really think that if you really want to embrace this, you know, this new way that our society is being organized, you really need to also stand for something, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think it's really important to share your values so that people will be much more, you know, will like you more if they share the same values, and they will want to help you achieve what you try to achieve. So stand for something. I think it's important, and that's my presentation. And I would love to have questions so that I can answer them. Thank you. The first one is always the hardest.
I have used Storify for sharing a story about our conferences, and I noticed that not much people take interest in reading the long story.
Mm-hmm.
If you see the visits on that website, it's really a minority that stays. Let's say it was a 2-day conference.
Mm-hmm.
Many people stay for a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome this problem? Or
Okay, so the question, do I need to repeat the question for maybe? So the question is, so this person used Storify to cover a conference, and he found out that people were not that interested in seeing the long stories because there is probably too much content. So I think that's actually a good illustration. So thanks for asking the question. There is 2 different goals, and that's why actually I advise people to do 2 different stories. One story could be a story that you keep updating during the length of the 2-day conference, and the goal is more to highlight the people who took the time to share something about the conference, and you really want to reward them. So when you use the tool, we also notify the people that are included in the story. And so people get notified and they feel like, oh, great, what I've shared is useful, and now it's being, you know, I'm being rewarded and being included in something. That's one thing. And the second thing is, especially for a 2-day conference, is you really want to do a story of the very best. And the story of the very best, of course, should be as short as possible, like maybe the 10 best tweets and Instagram of the conference, because otherwise it's going to be too boring for people to get to see. And I think it's really important to do that as well, because the thing that is happening on social networks, when people share something, it's really lost in the noise of social networks. When I share something, only my followers will get it, and then after the next hour, it's gone. and it's kind of lost. And it's a problem, especially if that person was saying something really nice about your conference or about your product. And so what we really want to do is archive that in a story, in something that's going to last much longer, that's going to give a second life to those earned media. That's the way we call those things. So that you can capitalize on that. And also for the next year conference, people will go back to that story and they will see like, oh wow, the previous conference, those people were there and they were sharing this. And again, this is not the organizer of the conference who's telling me the conference is awesome. I could see previous year, real people were there, and this is what they were saying.
You talked about rewards. What kind of rewards do you think of? Is just sharing the same info on a wall? Or?
So the question is, when I was talking about rewards, what type of rewards am I talking about? Well, when you share on social media, you want to be seen. Otherwise, you wouldn't share it, right? And so the fact that you're gonna include that person's social piece on social media in a story will increase the visibility of that piece also over time, but not only. And so people tend to gain more followers, for example, and that's the big reward. Yep.
When you went to the States, did you leave Belgium with a plan? I'm going to do Storify, or I'm going to do this. Or did you just go and say, like, I'll just go there and I'll find out myself whatever happened? No plan or plan?
So the question is about, like, did I have a plan before going to the United States? I give a really short answer, and because there is a full video to go look on the website about that. But the short answer is, I already had a vision of, okay, I was already on Twitter, I identified the problem that there is 1% of really great content and 99% of crap. We need to find a way to amplify the signal. And so I started with the first product that was called PubiTweet for only publishing Twitter. Here, that was being used by Skynet.be and lesoir.be. And then with that, tried to raise money, couldn't. So I moved to San Francisco. I realized that my time would be better spent there than trying to grow kiwis under the Belgian sky. So I just went there, and it was hard, it wasn't easy. It takes time to become an overnight success. And yeah, and then we can talk more. But yeah.
What were some of your obstacles when you were trying to first get your first users?
So the question.
How did you get them?
So the question was, what were the obstacles when we tried to get our first users? So the very first obstacle was that. So here it was easy because I got first Belgium Skynet and I worked there before, so I knew the people. Then I used that to go to lesoir because they're like, look, Skynet is trusting me, and so you should do it too. So that was using my own personal network. But then over there, I was nobody. And say like, people, who is this guy from Belgium? And what is Belgium anyway? So that was hard. And so it took me 6 months to get the San Francisco Chronicle, which is the equivalent of lesoir, to try for free my product. But then eventually like that. And then what I did also was after 7 months, I said like, okay, if it's gonna take me that long to get one user, I need to find something else. And so I started looking for a co-founder who had experience in the media industry in the United States, who was a former journalist. And so I started presenting my vision and my product all the places I possibly could. And that's how I ended up finding my partner. And so my partner, for him, it was as easy to get the product in front of the Washington Post, it was easy for me to get my product in front of lesoir. The only difference is when lesoir uses your product, no one cares. When the Washington Post uses your product, a lot of people care. And so the fact also that we started not trying to actually, when we started, we really focused on journalism, because that's what we are really passionate about. And so it really helped get access to the people who have a lot of influence. And whenever a journalist will use a product and embed it on their site, well, millions of people will see it. And so today we have 1.7 million users and 35 million uniques a month. But that's definitely thanks to all of the journalists who've been using it. And after that, even though we didn't build it for that, we started seeing like marketing people started using it, organization. We had the White House, Barack Obama used it for the election. And so all of those things that we actually didn't even know. One day we woke up and said, the White House on Storify, this is great. And the Queen of England is on Storify. I offered her a special training, but she didn't accept the offer. She told me that she actually has a team, so I was really hoping she would have been the one using the computer, but she's not. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing some of your future plans with Storify and direction you're headed?
So the question is about the future plans of Storify and the direction I'm heading. We sold the company a year and a half ago to Livefire, a company based in San Francisco, who is also helping big companies, more on the marketing side, actually to leverage social media. And so now the focus is really on growing the user base, especially for the Storify enterprise version of it. So that's really kind of the plan right now. And so we released recently a brand new version of the editor with multiple editors for teams, which is really great. So that's kind of the short-term plan. Now, as far as I am concerned, as an entrepreneur, I really love starting things. My thing is to go from 0 to 1, and then other people are better than me to develop further. And that's actually the reason why I sold the company. And probably in the future, I'll definitely at one point start something new. So stay tuned. Yeah.
Can you tell something about the business models?
So the business model, the question is about the business model. So the business model is it's freemium. So there is a free version, and then people, especially enterprises, can subscribe to an enterprise plan that's really targeting for big media companies or big brands, organizations, and they use it because they want to have multiple people using the platform, and they don't want to share an account with multiple people. They want to have more customization, more support, all of those type of features. So they pay a license for that, a monthly license. Yep.
Hi, I just returned from an internship at the United Nations social media team, and I did a lot of stories on Storify for
Thank you.
You're welcome. But the thing that disappointed me was that the stories didn't always get a lot of views, for around 500, 700, maybe 1,000.
Yep.
But my question is, do you feel like people go to Storify and look or browse for stories, or do you feel that they only get directed towards a certain story by the company that produced it?
So the question is about, so she used Storify, and she was disappointed that she didn't get enough views on her stories. The question was, how, if we see people going directly to Storify to discover stories, or people would get directly to them. So it's actually, we see 15% of the traffic is directly on Storify itself. So 85% is from the embeds. So it's basically, we have really two types of users. We have media users and then brands, marketing users. And so media users, they already have a destination on their own. They already have a website with a lot of traffic, with an audience. And so they embed the stories there. And so they already have views. And then we have marketing people who, from brands, they don't have really a website where people go to. And so they tend to not embed, actually. They leave the stories on Storify. And then they kind of rely more on their own ability to share or to promote it. So it really will depend. Like, obviously, being on Storify, I mean, there's still like a couple of millions that could just go on Storify. So people through related stories, they can discover stories. But the most important thing is, like, you need to promote it. When you notify people, it's also something that people not only love, but will also retweet to share, and that will also help reach a lot of people. And then it depends on the topic, obviously, right? It depends if it's a conference about a broad topic or really niche, and it depends on a lot of factors.
A big part of your business is actually built on external services like Instagram and Twitter and so on. Do you have separate agreements with those partners, or you just integrate with them and hope for the best?
Yeah, so I mean, when we started, and that's also like a mantra in Silicon Valley, which is don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. And so that's what you need to do, because you cannot wait or stop for other people to get your thing going, because the most likelihood is that you're gonna fail anyway. So why bother? And then if it works out, then you create value, and then it's something of interest. So it's gonna be easier to negotiate what you need to have, right? It's kind of the Uber way as well. And so now we do have. So at the beginning we didn't have any agreement, but now we do have agreements with those folks. So we can have access to a better APIs from Twitter, for example, to better filter the
And
stream.
do you pay for it?
Those are, I cannot share some of those information. But
How do you see network-driven marketing using new tools like the newer social media like Snapchat and so on?
So,
The messages and just for a couple of seconds live.
yes, the question is, how do we see marketing evolving with the new tools like Snapchat and so on? So what I think is interesting is with all of those Snapchat and all of those things, Snapchat, WhatsApp, and others, we start seeing emerging really in the network. So in the network, we start seeing emerging nodes and sub-networks that are kind of separated from the rest, that you don't really have access to, like subgroups of people, in a WhatsApp group or Snapchat or things that don't last for a long time. And I think that's a really good example. That's why it's really important to don't try to do it yourself. Empower your users, some of the people who use your product or services know better than you how to communicate with those people. It's like for you, if the Snapchat users were actually speaking a different language, you don't know how to communicate with them. And even if you try, you're probably gonna sound awkward. So it's really better to, hey, no, I mean, those are things, those are materials you can use, you can modify them, you can do whatever you want, and then if someone wants to share it on Snapchat, you will figure out that, hey, no, I need to modify this content this way, and I'm gonna share it on my own. So to me, the best way to scale is not to do it yourself. Find a way to enable other people to do it for you. That's the only way to scale, and try to also do that in a recursive way. Can I empower someone to do something I want them to do, and then can I empower the same person to empower another person to do the thing that I wanted them to do? And then in a recursive way, you actually, like that, you reach the entire network. And for that to happen, it's really important also that your message is really, really simple, really, really clear, because it's gonna get modified, and you need to, the more complex your value proposition is, the harder it's gonna be for your users to convey it to the next person. And again, like the people, your fans are not directly in your team, they're not being paid by you, and they're not being trained by you. They don't have time to follow a training by you. So you really need to make it dead easy for them to share your value proposition. Yeah.
How important is it for a Belgian startup to launch an app in the States? Or to put it differently, would you be able to achieve that kind of critical mass without being in the States?
So the question is it important to launch for a Belgian company an app in the States? I guess it really depends on what company are we talking about. If you are InBev and you sell beers all around the world, or if you are something that's really local, I believe that the boundaries, Belgian boundaries and so on, are those are things of the past, really. They are just things that we have because we get that from our parents and grandparents and whatnot. I don't think they make a lot of sense anymore today. I think it's more about industries and about where your product is being distributed. So if you do a company that is software only, then the borders is basically much more about it's topical. If you do a product, for example, for doing this, what do you call that, this tweet wall over there, well, the problem for the market is potentially the world, all the people, all the conferences all around the world where they have a hashtag should be able to use that, right? So you shouldn't limit to a given market. And in those cases, of course, you should launch in the United States, you should launch in English, you should launch, to reduce the friction as much as possible to get to your users. So I think that's also something that, and I think actually it's a strength of Belgium because I like to say that Belgium is not really a country, it's a concept. It's such a small country. You drive for an hour, you're outside of Belgium. So people get quickly that we need to go abroad, and I think it's really important. And we shouldn't fall into the trap of trying to target the Belgian market, because there is no such thing of a Belgian market. At least not in this new world. Yeah.
Do you have marketeers at Storify? Or do you call it Storify?
So, do we have marketeers at Storify? Yes, and actually, I kind of call them more like community managers. To me, the marketing people are the community managers are the new marketing people. Because if you think that your marketing team now, all the people, the fans that you have are an extension of your marketing team, now actually the role of your marketing team should be to manage the community of the people who love your product. And this is called community management. So we don't have a marketing title, we have someone who is a community manager. Yeah.
Just imagine, it would sound like a nightmare, you're appointed as the next chief marketing officer of KBC. What would you do?
The question is, if I'm the next chief marketing officer of KBC, what would I do? Well, there is plenty of other things I would do first. Before. What would I do? Where to start? I don't know. I would implement Bitcoin. I would gather a community. People, they need to see you as an expert in what you do. They're gonna use you because they trust you. They don't have the time to do the things that you do, and they need to see that they can trust you. And they can trust you because you show them that you are relevant, you're on top of your space. People hear about Bitcoin, for example. All people at KBC should be able to tell their customer what this Bitcoin is, even though they may not implement it. They should be able to know, because people need to trust you that you are an expert in your domain. So I will do that. What else? There are other things that are not really marketing related. It's more like, instead of, I will cut the budget for R&D and I will spend that money to acquire startups. Because this is the best way to drive innovation, is to actually let people think outside of the box. And they cannot think outside of the box within a box. So stay in your garage, think, come up with new services, new mobile application and whatnot. And then once there is something that emerges that seems interesting, then let's acquire them. That's going to be a much better way to drive innovation. What else? I could come up with a plan if they are serious about it. Yeah.
What would be your top 3 lessons learned from the States that you would say, okay, here in Belgium to startups, these top 3 things you need to do or change or adapt?
So what are the 3 top lessons I learned in the States that could be applied to Belgian companies? So actually the thing I just mentioned is definitely one of them. There is over there a market of the startup. In Belgium, a startup has 2 possible destinies. Either they fail or they become profitable, in which case the investors, they need to wait a long time to get their money back. Over there, there are actually a third opportunity, which is being acquired, in which case investors will get their money back earlier with a multiplier. And so it makes a lot of difference, because then investors are willing to invest in projects that are not necessarily profitable, as long as they create value and there is a probability they could be acquired. So that's definitely one thing. The other thing is also about this great thing that they have over there, the concept of paid forward. People over there understand that if they've been successful, it's not only because of their talent, it's also because other people have helped them at one point or another. And they help them by taking the time to have coffee, to get advice, they connected them with other people that were important. And at that time, as a young entrepreneur who hasn't done anything yet, you cannot really thank them. They're already millionaires, you're not going to help them really. And they say, that's fine, don't need to thank me, you're gonna pay it forward. And this mentality, this culture is really fantastic, because it really helps everybody learn from the best. You don't learn, like it's often the case here, from intellectuals who studied the problem of startups. No, you learn from people who have done a startup. And that makes a really massive difference in the type of advice that you get and the motivation that you get. So the paid forward is also something great. And also something that I try whenever I come back to Belgium and Europe in general to promote. And also tell people who, even though if you're not an entrepreneur, like people who have director level at big companies, like open your door, make yourself available. We are still in Europe in this concept, culture of class, where once you achieve a certain level, you belong to a different class, you start wearing a suit, you drive a different car, and you don't talk to the young guy, who has done nothing in his life yet. And that needs to change. We need to open our doors, because it can really make a big difference. For example, at the beta group, there is a lot of companies presenting projects there. Often, when I go there, I see people with great ideas, but often it's solutions looking for problems. And if only they were able to go talk with someone who kind of represents the market, who has a purchase power for a company, who could tell them, like, you know what, if you modify your product slightly this way, then there is a market. And that's sometimes like the missing link. It's all about collaboration. Being able to pull off a startup, it's all about collaboration.
I have a question just on a cultural level. I'm an American living in Belgium. I'm curious from
Welcome.
you.
Thanks for choosing Belgium. Amazing.
I'm curious though, what positive things do you find as a Belgian working in America? What cultural things do you bring to Americans?
What cultural
Besides
things?
food and
Yeah, I was going to say, like, beer is the obvious one.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Thanks for asking. What do you think? I think first, compared to other European culture that I won't mention, we are really good at getting along with and being part of everybody there. Like Belgium is so teeny tiny that we kind of don't care. So we are not there to defend anything. We just go with the flow, which is something that I find useful. So that's why the Belgian passport can get you anywhere, which is great. What else?
Is, for example, in your company, do you do anything within your company that has like a Belgian flavor that is different from an American style?
Yes, we have a frame with Tintin. Tintin in America, obviously, and to the moon, obviously. What is really Belgian? Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there is probably much more beer in our startup than in any other startup in the valley. I don't know. I need to think a bit more about that. It's just not thing that we think about. Also, as Belgian, we don't feel like other culture, like the need to necessarily think about, hey, we need to introduce this thing of our culture to other people. I think that naturally we don't.
So you're not very American yet.
Maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes. Depends. Yeah.
Looking back from where you are now, what would you have done differently?
So what would I have done differently? A lot of things. Because doing a startup is, every day it's a new day. It's things that you didn't learn at school, so you need to learn on the spot. And you always know, you're always smarter after, right? Which is really frustrating. So a bunch of things. For example, when I first got there, I already got my vision and idea and first prototype, and I was really trying to pitch it and say no, my idea is the best, and this is the solution. And that really doesn't work that way. The probability that the first way you implement the solution that you try to bring to the market to solve a problem, the first iteration cannot possibly be the right solution from the get-go. You need to iterate, and you can only iterate with feedback. And so especially coming from abroad, it's actually a better approach to, instead of pitching your idea, you just say hey, no, I'm interested and passionate about this. Go meet the people who are like you, passionate about the same space, and go ask them what keeps you awake at night. What are the problems that you see? And then eventually someone will say something that's kind of more or less similar to what you try to do, and then there is a way to, to be on the same wavelength much more easily than if you try to just force your way. So, so I definitely wasted a few months to learn that. It's also the concept of you need to give, and give before getting anything. Give, get. You know, try to be useful to a new, especially when you enter a new community, try to be useful first. You need to show people that you can bring value, and because you're bringing value, then you're in a position to ask for something. That's it?
Another question.
Yeah.
What's your experience in working or talking with big corporate companies in the sense that obviously they want all their customers to be the biggest fan of their product, and they try to, let's say, use that information and put it into stories out, but they're very definitely afraid of that one single customer who is not happy and will put out a post or a tweet saying, oh, this company sucks because this is this.
Yeah.
It hinders that big corporates to really fully go to their What's your experience?
So the question is, what's the reaction of big companies with talking about all of those marketing strategies, and because people will be afraid that people will say bad things about their company? Well, it's actually quite simple. They can control it. It's already happening. Like, want it or not, people are already talking about you and your services on all of those different shared networks. So that is already happening. So you may not like it, but who cares? It's happening. So it's more about giving you an opportunity, a tool to try to take some control over it, and at least shed a light on the part of those conversations that are happening that you like, rather than, you know, let people search on their own and then stumble upon the parts that you don't want them to see. So that's the thing. Now, in terms of for ourselves, like how do we contact companies and how do we convince in the B2B market companies to use your product? The way it works now in this new world is the best way to do B2B is to actually do a B2C2B. You want to actually target the employee, the person who's the end user within the company who's gonna use your product. You want to target that person, and you want to make sure that person can start using you without having to go up the chain and wait for the boss of the boss to approve it. And so that's why it's important, like we start seeing like more and more SaaS businesses where you have a $20, $50 per month per user, because they can put that on the credit card and expense it, they don't need to ask permission. And then as you see more and more people within a given company who start using it, then you can go up the chain, spend a bit more time, and try to sell an enterprise plan with those people. So that's something that we see being developed more and more.
Any final questions? Okay. No? I guess we wrap it up now.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, one more?
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Another one? No? Final one.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can tweet me and I'll reply in 140 characters.
No, you just answered that you can take control of the positive reactions and amplify that, but there could be a one hater that amplifies using Storify.
Oh yeah, sure. Of course they can, but you know, then depends on how much influence the person has, and of course everybody can use it's a typewriter. You can use it for a lot of different things, and many different people can use it for different purposes. Do it first.
Do it first, yes.
Like if there's like really bad propaganda on site.
So the question is, are we monitoring Storify if there is really bad propaganda? So yeah, people can flag stories or if there is abuse, and I mean if there is like clear like abuse, like hate speech or things like that, we'll take the story down. But also like most of the time, there is some funny things like most of the time people with money usually use their power and use their lawyer to send you a letter to take down a story just because they don't like the story. And most startups will just comply because they have other things to do, but it was really part of something important for us to stand against that. And so, for example, we had a really rich doctor in the United States who regretted that he has said something on social networks, and someone did a story about that, and he wanted this like, no, I mean, I don't want my tweet to be in that story. And then we said, Well, no, I mean, if you said something publicly, then a journalist can say that you said that. You have the right to say that you regret it, but you don't have the right to say that you didn't say it. Because no, you have the proof, here is it. And so those are the type of situations. So they're trying to find loopholes in the system, like saying like, hey, but the avatar you're using there is a copyrighted image, and all of those crazy loopholes that they try to get to, but we said no. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for spending time with us and responding to all the questions being asked now. We don't wrap it up totally yet, so next door you can still have a drink, you can still have something to eat, still ask some final questions. Thanks very much for coming. Thanks for the quotes, Xavier. So I have a later meeting with my manager coming up, so I won't ask for permission, I will ask for forgiveness first when entering his room. So thank you very much and good afternoon everyone. Thank you.